Ho ho bodies, want to Borderline Games. I'm Gareth and today we're playing Chaos Head Episode 2. Last time we just started. We were introduced to our new character, Takumi. Is that his name? Let's just make sure I've got the name right here. Takumi. Chaos Head protagonist is called Takumi Nishijo. Yeah, so we were introduced to Takumi, who talked about an essay that he wrote about the gaze that he felt. And it was called something like "Whose Eyes Are Those?" or something like that. "Whose Eyes Are Those?" is what it was called. And we just kind of introduced to his living situation, which is pretty dire. He lives on the top of a block of flats in a what are those crates called? Those like big metal crates that you get in like construction sites and stuff like that. Like a metal container, you know the kind of thing I mean? He lives in one of those, and he is the type of person that stays indoors and plays computer games. And he talks to his friends when he plays his MMO RPG game. And whilst he was on let me drink some water. Whilst I'm thinking about what he was on the chat boards. And he was talking to his friend, and then someone joined the chat, and as well as showing them links to a bunch of murders, it looked like, he also said, "Whose eyes are those?" which is the title of his essay, which kind of freaked him out. And now we're on our way to school. It kind of gave me the impression that it was like the middle of the evening or middle of the night. But it wasn't. It was kind of in the morning when he was doing this. And now he's going to have to go to school. Let's get going. It's kind of slow, drawn out, and horrible, but I hope he's still there. Alright, let's go. I needed to get going or I'd be late. I had to avoid that outcome at all costs. I only came to school 2 to 3 times a week, so I had to keep a low profile. To make it through school, I had to blend in to become invisible like the air. The ideal school day was one where nothing happened, one where I didn't have to deal with any of my teachers or DQN classmates. That was the ultimate goal I shot for, and it would continue to be until the day I'd finally graduate. This was Sumai Private Academy, the school I went to. Apparently it had only been built around 10 years ago, so it didn't exactly have a rich history or anything like that. Since it still looked brand new, it made a pretty good setting for high school TV shows. On top of that, the school uniforms had apparently been designed by some famous designer. A ton of shallow-ass girls enrolled just so that they could wear it. Yeah, he's a bit of an incel, this protagonist. And while they called it a prep school, most students here didn't score much higher than the national average. Even more ironic, though, was that the school slogan was, "Here you'll be free," and yet the school rules were actually really strict. Then again, they never actually bothered enforcing those rules. So, I guess the slogan wasn't really wrong in the end. I mean, I barely even showed up and I passed my classes just fine. If you could get away with that, you could probably get away with anything. As I closed in on the school, I could hear the other students more and more clearly. I wasn't good at dealing with crowds, so I just kept my head low as I slipped through the gate. Nobody talked to me, nobody talked to me. I repeated those words in my head like a mantra. My younger sister also attended this school, though she still lived with my parents. What's the situation with his parents then? So why doesn't he live with his parents? Run into her and any perfectly fine day could turn into a nightmare. Luckily I hadn't run into her this time. I made it to class safe and sound. I rushed over to my seat, being careful not to make eye contact with anyone. I could feel a nearby group of girls shoot a glance at me, but thankfully, they went right back to chatting afterward. They all thought I was a freak. I was sure of it. Well, from my point of view, you 3D sluts are the real freaks here. Good God, man. If you think I'm a freak, then don't look at me. Just pretend I'm not here. Don't acknowledge me at all. If you all just do that, then I won't bother you either. I can go about my day in peace. That's why it always confuses me when I see DQNs calling people freaks. I just don't get it. If you think they're such a freak, then why even bother talking to them? Just stay in your corner and they'll stay in theirs. Regardless, I was just sitting there, looking down at my desk when... Yo, Taku! Someone suddenly clapped me on the back. Startled, I turned around to look behind me. Didn't know you were coming in today. Oh, Masumi-kun. It was Masumi Daisuke, one of my classmates. He shot me a friendly smile from beside my desk. The guy was pretty handsome, so all the girls were into him. But he was also into them and dated them, a lot of them. Usually multiple at a time. If you ask me, he was balls deep into DQN territory. If it were up to me, I'd steer clear of him, but... You're looking as grim as ever. You stay up all night playing games again. Not really. He was the only person in class who was comfortable talking to me. Oh, he's his friend? Though we had absolutely nothing in common, so I had no idea why he bothered, his friend that he totally doesn't appreciate. I've been suspicious about it ever since the school year began. If I were a girl, I could maybe understand, but since I was a guy, it made no sense to me. I know it's hard since you're a shut-in and all, but you should really try to speak up. I would if I could. Just the act of talking to another 3D human being was painful. Anxiety made it hard for me to speak naturally. My lack of experience made it hard for me to articulate things. And I was always afraid of being teased for saying something weird. That was why I always shrunk back. You have no idea how much pain I'm going through, so please don't talk like you know me. Also, I'm not a goddamn shut-in. Real shut-ins stay in their rooms 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I'm not like that. I mean, I can understand feeling nervous around chicks, but if you keep stuttering around like that, around me, people might start thinking we're gay. Huh? Wait, was he just dating girls as a cover? Had he been into guys all along? That's not what he was saying. I tried to back away from him, nearly falling out of my chair in the process, but I quickly grabbed onto my desk to catch myself. The hell are you doing, dude? Masumi-kun, are you gay? What? No way in hell. Did you forget all the chicks I've landed? Right. Phew. That was terrifying. Homophobe. Speaking of landing chicks. Masumi-kun took a quick look around, then lowered his voice and grinned from ear to ear. I just bagged my third girl from this class. Want to know who? Not really. No. Come on. You can at least pretend to care. It was Tanaka, man. Tanaka! Who's Tanaka? Do you seriously not know the names of our classmates by now? It's nearly October, dude. Well, you say you're not into 3D girls, so I guess it makes sense. Visibly frustrated, he shrugged his shoulders and let out a sigh. Well, interestingly enough, he never insulted my taste in girls, which was, to put it simply, that they had to be from the second dimension. But he never called me a freak for that. He just didn't bother with things that didn't interest him. That was what made me think he may not have been all that bad. That was also probably the reason why I didn't mind talking to him. Anyway, I've pretty much scored on every cute girl in this class by now. I think it's about time I started heading next door. Okay, maybe he was pretty bad. If a girl overheard some of the shit he said, she'd be horrified. There's a real hot one in Class D. But it doesn't look like she comes to school much. Ain't got much in the chest, though. Yeah, he's not a good guy. Not that I think about it. Now that I think about it, though, aren't you into flat girls anyway? Are you talking about 2D? That's not... whatever. Alright, new topic. Have you heard about New Gen? I hadn't expected to hear those words come out of his mouth. And here I thought he was only capable of thinking about girls. I couldn't even picture him watching the news or reading the newspaper. There's been some rumours that the group dive wasn't actually a suicide. What? Yeah, that's what the Sports Tokyo said. What, so his source was Sports Tokyo? That kinda erased any and all credibility. Still, I'd already known about that rumour, not that I cared. Okay, now, listen closely. This is the good part. An eyewitness said that the killer's a chick, and a real hottie at that too. A chick? Watching Masumi-kun get so excited, it finally hit me. Why did he suddenly care enough to read Sports Tokyo? Same reason he cared about anything else. Something to do with girls. What a twist. I guess Masumi-kun would even go after serial killers as long as they were cute. I mean, if it were me, I'd take a cute 2D serial killer, but... Masumi-kun stared longingly at the blue sky outside the window. And for some reason his face suddenly lit up as if he'd reached enlightenment itself. Really though, I wonder what kind of person the murderer is. Is she really a cutie? If she is, then I really want to meet her. Yeah, this dude definitely thought exclusively with the wrong head. I know she wouldn't kill me, I mean, look at me. I've got the looks, and chicks dig me. No matter how many people she's killed, she'd definitely fall in love with me, with a nice guy like me. I'm so nice. And that's why she wouldn't kill you? This guy was so delusional that he gave me a run for my money. At least he got some self-awareness. The fact that he was able to say all that without even a hint of irony was honestly pretty gross. I don't really care. The hell do you mean you don't really care? You know the killer is somewhere in this city, right? It might even be someone you've met before. Yeah, well, for all I know, you could be the murderer. Okay, probably not. But it was entirely possible that the killer could be one of the students at this very school. If that turned out to be true, maybe I'd use my PTSD as an excuse to come in less often without hurting my attendance. I like where his mind's at. Maybe I could use this to not come into school as much. So, want to check out the crime scene with me? It's close enough to walk to from here. I hear they haven't even finished cleaning up the blood yet. I had absolutely zero interest in doing that. I just wanted to get to school in peace, go home, greet Saratan, and get back to being worshipped like a god in Baselard. Come on, even Kabashi and Hasagara have gone to see it. I really don't want to. Oh, okay. I felt bad about turning Masumi-kun down since he seems so excited about it. But I really did not want to go, so I could go green and say yes, right? Or turn him down, okay. Let's go green. Is that right? And then... But even though I was trying my hardest to refuse, he just wasn't listening. Maybe we'll see the murderer. Oh, maybe we'll see the murderer. They say the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime, right? Huh, maybe she'd pick you as her next victim to atone for your sins. You must die. You know, that kind of thing. As for your sins, though, being a shut-in? So we're going with green, right? I felt like it should have been obvious to him how much I didn't want to go and see a puddle of blood and gore. It'd been way too much for me. It wouldn't be like a haunted house or a horror movie or something. People had actually died in real life, and the killer was still on the loose. So whoever the murderer was likely to be, I'd have liked to be anywhere but there. Still, I was curious about the murderer. What could have possibly been their motive? Were they just a psychopath that committed crimes for the hell of it? That was probably the most reasonable explanation. Well, whatever, it didn't really matter to me. I mean, I was a serial killer too. And even though I'd killed hundreds of people, people still treated me like a hero. That was in ESO though. Lol lol lol. Just goes to show how much better the 2D world is. Anyway, as I tried my hardest to turn down Masumi-kun's proposal, I imagined myself like a brawler straight out of some fighting game. A psycho killer. If I ran into a guy like that, I'd turn him into mincemeat. In my delusions, I could kill or spare anyone I wanted. The people who actually tried to live out those sort of delusions were idiots. Didn't they know that real-life actions had real-life consequences? Even the new-gen killer would be caught eventually, and then they'd rot in prison for years, decades even, just waiting to be sent to the gallows. If I could say one thing to them, it'd be, what a pity. You really should have just kept your delusions to yourself. Okay, here we are. I went out to buy myself some dinner. Are we in the... is this a delusion? It's all wiggly. Or have we actually gone out to buy some dinner? I took the road I always used to get to my local convenience store. It was only a 3-minute walk from my base. Yeah, this is like later on in the evening, is it? I'd walked down this dirty alley more times than I could count. But for some reason walking through it today, I couldn't help but feel as if I'd stepped into another world. The alley was the same as ever, but it felt like it was the first time I'd ever set foot in it. Familiar yet new, like the opposite of deja vu. I'd researched the phenomenon online before. The name for it was apparently jamais vu. Jamais vu? Jamais vu? What's more, the stench of rotting garbage was lingering in the air. The moisture in the atmosphere was so thick that if I hadn't known any better, I'd have assumed that it'd just been raining. The air was like syrup on my skin. I heard a sound. The faint sound of something dragging across the ground. I stopped in my tracks and listened closely. Uh-oh. It sounded like it was coming from up ahead. From somewhere down the alley and around the corner. Without any streetlights or lit-up windows, it was pitch black down there. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't see a thing. It was strange. This was a modern-day Shibuya. A place that, along with Shinjuku, was known as the city that never sleeps. So how could there still be places that were this dark? It almost felt like the entrance to a haunted house. Actually, there was one very large distinction. This darkness wasn't man-made. It was real. I didn't want to go any farther. Nothing good would come from it. My brain set off every alarm bell it could, trying to prevent my body from taking another step. But for some inexplicable reason, my body stepped forward anyway, as if drawn to that repeating sound. My fear urged me to stop, that something horrible would happen if I kept going. My heart started racing. My forehead was slick with sweat. Up ahead. Suddenly a noise that was beautiful yet somehow discordant at the same time reached my ears, a voice garbled by static. Before I knew it, someone had grabbed my forearm. It was all too sudden. I panicked and tried to scream for help, but all that came out was a puff of air. Terrified, I tried to force my body to run away, but it wouldn't listen. I couldn't move an inch. I looked toward my arm, and the hand of the thing that had grabbed me came into view. Whoa. It was dark green, with skin taut like a mummy's. Countless veins protruding from the surface. It didn't look alive. If you go any further... To be honest, it made sense that I couldn't move. Going all deer in the headlights was a natural reaction to what was happening. What was surprising to me, though, was that the voice in my ear was so soothing. The fear swelling inside me was starting to vanish. You'll be in danger. I'm doing the smoothest voice I can. A serious yet gentle voice. I slowly looked over my shoulder. The first thing I noticed was the Sumai Academy emblem. The same emblem you could find sewn into the chest of each and every Sumai uniform. Then I noticed that the person was wearing a skirt, which meant she was a girl. But I didn't have the courage to look at the most important part. Her face. She was standing way closer than I was expecting, so I couldn't bring myself to face her. I couldn't put my finger on why, but for some reason, something seemed off. So I turned my attention back toward her hand. Oh, it's not green now. The hand gripping my arm was delicate and feminine, even though just a moment ago, I'd seen it as green and grotesque. This girl, who was she? What kind of expression was on her face? What kind of expression was she making at me? What was she doing here? In spite of all my questions, I couldn't manage to get a single word out. I simply hung my head in silence. At some point, the dragging sound had stopped. Turn back. And in its place, there was a smell. Coming from her body. Weird. Please. Takumi-kun. The stench of blood. Oh, coming from her body. Oh my god. Oh, okay. Here I am. That was awesome. I was sitting behind a computer monitor. I chugged down a cola to contain my excitement, then leaned back in my chair. That'd be one hell of a delusion. I especially liked that mystery girl. I might give her a name and flesh out her personality in future delusions. I let my imagination run wild like this all the time. Usually I'd go to cast an existing character as the girl, such as Sarah Tan, so I might as well do that here too. Actually. Sarah didn't quite fit the vibe of that mystery girl. Well, at any rate, it was a lot of fun mixing together 2D and 3D in my delusions. I was the god of the world inside my head. In there, everything bent to my will. I'll definitely make the next one more sexy. I said that to myself as if I were at my base, but when I remembered I was in an internet cafe, I quickly covered my mouth. I quietly peeked outside. It didn't seem like anyone had heard me just now, so meh. For an indoor person like me, At Cafe was the only hangout spot I enjoyed. Being at the centre of Shibuya and all, there were plenty of 3D DQN women and office drones occupying it, but since the rooms were all primitive is what I was going to say, private, that wasn't an issue. As for the room I was in, it was the one I always reserved, room 37, located way in the back. It was pretty convenient to get refills, but since very few people ever reserved rooms back near the back, it was nice and quiet. Once or twice a week, I'd come here on my way home from school, to log on to my other ESO account. Neidhart was essentially a celebrity, so this was my way to just relax and enjoy the game. While I did love being treated like a hero all the time, it sure did take its toll. That was why I'd made another avatar. This one was a female character named Lysalot, or Lisalot. I hadn't accomplished anything big with her. I'd mainly just made her to help Neidhart look even better by comparison. I played for about 3 hours to blow off some steam, and then had some fun messing around with my guild mates while talking about hardcore dojins and other random shit. By the time I'd left the cafe, it was already around 9 PM. There were even more DQNs around at this time of night. They'd line the streets like they owned the place, stuffing their faces with greasy-ass hamburgers as they let out the most disgusting laughter imaginable. Just looking at them made me want to puke. This guy's so gross. And what was especially bad? If you just so much looked at them, the wrong way, they'd immediately come and beat the shit out of you, fucking savages. They weren't human. They were animals. Not fit for civilized society. Just throw them in a slaughterhouse or something, seriously. Well, I say that, but there was no way I could hope to ever stand up to them myself. So there was no point in trying. Regardless, it was time to get the hell out of Centre Guy. On my way back from At Cafe, I always dropped by Manga Derake, which was pretty close by, or Animite, which was a bit further off. I decided to check out Animite today, so I headed toward the station's south exit. Down that path there was an instant drop in the number of DQNs. Man, Centre Guy was complete and utter chaos. Just walking through it brought me nothing but pain and suffering. I'd never set foot there again if I could help it. I wish the whole place would just get blown to smithereens, except At Cafe. And Manga Drake, of course. Manga Drake. Alright then. Time to go browsing for some comics, doujins, how you say that? Or whatever else catches my eye. Oh yeah, that's right. The Blood Tune Volume 5 DVD was coming out soon. Was it available for pre-order yet? If so, I definitely needed to get one nailed down. Before I knew it, I found myself in an alleyway in Maruya Macho, the same alley I always took home from Animite. I blinked a couple of times to make sure that I wasn't just seeing things. I took a look inside my bag. Nothing inside but the usual, some textbooks and a handheld game system. I hadn't brought anything from Animite today. Strange. Normally I'd never leave Animite empty-handed. Well, whatever. Let out a sigh and continued walking. Shouldn't take me more than 50 minutes to reach my base from here. It was only a short walk from the station, yet the dazzling neon lights and thick crowds had all but vanished. There were the occasional passers-by, usually older couples heading to love hotels or random businessmen heading home, but aside from that, the place was deserted. Hard to believe this was still in Shibuya, home of the bustling, DQN-infested Centre Guy. Somehow it was already night time, and if that weren't enough, it was especially cloudy tonight, making it even darker than usual, since the moonlight couldn't shine through. Here we go again. I'd walked down this dirty alley more times than I could count. But for some reason walking through it today, I couldn't help but feel as if I'd stepped into another world. This time it's not a delusion because it's not wiggly. The alley was the same as ever, but it felt like it was the first time I'd ever set foot in it. What's more, the stench of rotten garbage was lingering in the air. The moisture in the atmosphere was so thick that if I hadn't known any better, I'd have assumed that it'd just been raining. The air was like syrup on my skin. Wait, hold on. Why did I say again? Has this happened before? Hadn't I felt the sense of jamais vu before? Fuck, was I getting my delusions mixed up with reality or something? That sounded like the kind of nonsense some expert psychiatrist would say on one of those TV talk shows. Well, whatever. The point was, right at that moment, I was feeling a strange sense of jamais vu. But on top of that, I could feel a prickling sensation on the nape of my neck. A sensation I knew very well. The feeling of being watched from the heavens. I can say for sure that it was no delusion. It felt inescapable, as if, no matter where I went, the gaze would just follow. There was no doubt in my mind. Somebody was watching me. That was just how powerful the sensation was. I desperately wanted to look behind me, but I challenged myself not to. It was a game that I played every once in a while. A test. I called it the "it'll take more than that to make me turn round" game. The aim of the game obviously was to avoid turning around. I played it when I heard a weird sound or felt like I was being watched. Whenever I felt that gaze, I tended to imagine some kind of insanely terrifying ghost or monster lurking behind me. Not like I'd ever actually seen anything in the past 17 years, though. No, even on the occasions when I'd lost my patience and turned around. Still, I'd always been able to have at least a little bit of fun with it. I'd listen to the wind, raise an eyebrow suspiciously, and say phrases ripped straight out of a manga. That was the only reason why I did it, because it was fun. Definitely not because I was scared or anything. What do you think you're looking at, bastard? Whose eyes are those eyes? Gotcha. Okay, to be honest, I was really just trying to act calm. But before I knew it, I'd stopped dead in my tracks. We'll find out next time on Borderline Games why Takumi has stopped dead in his tracks. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Chaos Head, and we'll see you next time. Have a good evening. Bye-bye. Bye.